In this video, I'm going to explain the terrible error that WWE made with Jey Uso, why it was so devastating, and why fans are still talking about it despite though they ought to be talking about it more. Right now, Jey Uso is the center of attention, and for good reason. We're very excited for Jey because he defeated Braun Breaker to win the Intercontinental title. Yes, Jey's father is delighted, too, as am I and you. This is a moment when everyone is celebrating, but Jey Uso's life wasn't always like this. With him, WWE committed a grave error that was really painful. Let's take a quick look back at 2024, a year that was full of mistakes that could have had a disastrous effect on Jey Uso's career. Before we move on, even while some people would dismiss these as small errors, they highlight how WWE handled a talent with so much promise improperly. First up, Jey's earlier this year loss against Gunther in the Intercontinental title match. That was only the beginning of a pattern in which WWE repeatedly scheduled Jey to perform poorly. At Backlash France, he too fell short against World Heavyweight Champion Damian Priest. He later met the requirements to compete in the Money in the Bank match, but ultimately lost. WWE chose to give the victory to Drew McIntyre instead, but CM Punk later took advantage of him. These were some of the roadblocks that WWE threw in Jey's path, but when they eventually awarded him the Intercontinental title following his victory over Braun Breaker, at least they pointed him in the correct direction. I'm a big supporter of Jey Uso, so I'm really happy to see him win the IC Championship. This is a key time in his career because it's his first reign as a singles champion. It also enhances his legacy, as he becomes a member of only the second father-son team, Mr. Perfect and Curtis Axel, to hold the IC title. That is an amazing accomplishment. Even though WWE eventually made amends with Jey, they made one very major and obvious error that happened during the biggest event of the year. I am referring to WrestleMania, the ultimate WWE event. WrestleMania is the biggest platform where the biggest names compete for the most coveted belts. Fans and wrestlers alike are excited to watch who will shine under the biggest lights at this time. Jey Uso was really proud to be a part of this occasion, but the match they had him scheduled for at WrestleMania fell short of their expectations, which is what made this error so tragic. Jey's match at WrestleMania had a great build-up. On paper, the brother versus brother storyline that WWE developed between Jey and Jimmy Uso had the makings of one of the year's most talked about matches. But from the start, the whole feud was managed incorrectly. Jimmy's denial of Jey's Intercontinental title versus Gunther was the catalyst for everything. From then on, the rivalry intensified before WrestleMania 40, although the plot was poorly handled. The Uso twins matchup thrilled fans, who anticipated a titanic battle that would go on forever. But in the end, there wasn't much time for the contest, and the production value of the fight was poor. WWE not only made the audience watch two brothers, who they liked seeing together, compete against one another, but they also shortened the bout, which ruined the tension and momentum of the fight. This is where things went wrong. Jey and Jimmy were notified that their time had been shortened just prior to the start of their match. Imagine carefully organizing each play and sequence leading up to a match, only to find out moments before you start that you have to speed through it. That kind of last-minute modification is certain to affect the performance in this day and age where everything is meticulously planned out. Everything was thrown off, and the Uso brothers experienced exactly that. This was meant to be a historic match, a turning point in Jey and Jimmy's careers. It proved to be disappointing instead. If we liken it to another sibling rivalry, do you recall the Hardy Boys feud from back then? Matt became a heel, even setting up a pyrotechnics fight with Jeff. Even while the rivalry itself was unimpressive, their match at WrestleMania 25 was at least entertaining. However, Jey and Jimmy's match didn't work out that way. After getting his retribution, Jey easily defeated Jimmy in the middle of the ring, but that was the end of it. They just moved on. Jimmy made a surprise appearance on SmackDown in the ensuing weeks, but the bloodline laid him out and expelled him from the gang. He hasn't been seen since then. This is devastating because you know that Jey and Jimmy must have fantasized of this moment as children, facing off against one another in a historic brother versus brother contest at WrestleMania. They most likely thought that fans would be chatting about it for years to come, and they did talk about it, but for very inappropriate purposes. That's what makes this entire situation so awful. Usually, I don't mind if a show is too short. Actually, I believe that the way WWE currently does premium live event (PLE) cards, which consist of 5 to 6 matches, is ideal. The 4 to 6 hour cards that Vince McMahon used to book are definitely not something I miss. However, more time was required for Jey and Jimmy's WrestleMania match. To give the USO brothers their chance, WWE ought to have moved the times of the other matches. Jey Uso was, after all, already among the company's most well-liked acts at the time. Shortening his match was akin to informing a high-profile athlete such as Gunther, Randy Orton, or Sami Zayn that their scheduled time would be interrupted mere minutes before the event commenced. It's just not something that ought to occur. This error was a sign of a more serious problem with the way WWE handled Jey Uso in 2024. It seemed like Jey was constantly being held back, regardless of what he accomplished. He was trying to establish himself as a top star, but the firm kept putting roadblocks in his path. He was supposed to use this match at WrestleMania to mark a turning point in his career, but WWE's decision to shorten the time frame prevented that from happening. While I'm not particularly in favor of another Jey vs. Jimmy battle, WWE would need to give this feud the time and consideration it merits if they choose to bring it back. Although it is too late to undo the events of WrestleMania 40, the promotion might have salvaged the plot by using the rematch. They could have aired it back at Backlash in France. For example, WWE had the option to have Jey defeat Jimmy one more time rather than have him lose to Damian Priest in a bout tainted by outside intervention from the Judgment Day. This would have increased Jey's confidence among WWE management as well as the fan base. Regretfully, such was not the case. WWE elected to go in a different route, and as a result, Jey's momentum took a knock. It seems as though they were unaware of what they had in him. Even though Jey was one of the most over-the-top performers in the business, he was constantly having trouble persuading WWE executives that he was their man and someone they could trust. But, ultimately, Jey's situation improved. A new chapter in his career began when he defeated Braun Breaker to win the Intercontinental title. For Jey, this triumph was more than just a turning point. It was evidence that he had what it required to succeed as a singles competitor. Along with his father, Jey became the only wrestler in the history of father-son teams to win an Intercontinental title. This victory proved that Jey's perseverance was worthwhile. Jey Uso prevailed despite the WWE making some dubious booking choices in 2024, like as shortening his match at WrestleMania. His victory in the IC title match is evidence of both his brilliance and the devotion of his fans, who have stuck by him despite all of his setbacks. Now that he is the Intercontinental Champion, Jey Uso is at last receiving the acknowledgement he is due. Now that WWE has begun to mentor Jey Uso, it is evident that they recognize his potential. Even if there is little we can do to undo the past, it is heartening to see Jey seizing his present chance. It will be interesting to watch how WWE handles his storyline going forward. But one thing is certain, Jey Uso has shown that he is capable of overcoming any challenge. Even with the devastating error that WWE made at WrestleMania and the other hiccups in 2024, Jey Uso prevailed in the end. He has proven to the world that he is a legitimate single star who can proudly carry a championship. In addition to being an expert in tag teams, even while history cannot be changed, it's safe to say that Jey Uso's future appears to be more promising than it has ever been. The fans are eager to watch what the new Intercontinental Champion will do next because he has emerged as a symbol of tenacity.